As a way of framing the session today, here's a brief agenda for the next 30 minutes or so. We're going to start off with a brief introduction to BrightGen. I'll then hand over to Keir for an overview of Forcecom, a case study on TT Electronics, one of BrightGen's and Salesforce's customers, a case study and demo, and then at the end, if you have any questions, we'll set some time aside to answer those questions. Now, during the session, if you do have any questions, I'll be grateful if you could enter those into the pop-up window there, and we'll keep an eye on those and come to them at the end. Thank you. So, Keir, next slide, please. BrightGen was established in 2006, and we are a Salesforce Platinum partner. We are only one of 5 UK companies that have been awarded this highest accolade by Salesforce, and this is primarily based on our level of consultant certifications with the platform and the feedback from our customers. We are a pure-play Salesforce consultancy. This is the only technology with which we deal. We have offices, UK offices based in London and Leeds, but we undertake projects of all sizes all over the country and sometimes in Europe, and we work with customers of all sizes. Keir, on to the next slide, please. So, what we do. Our work can be divided up into 4 main areas. The first of these is project delivery. Essentially, this is implementing Salesforce. A project could be a week or 6 months in duration, depending on its nature. So we undertake all scale of work. The second item is that we provide ad hoc consultancy to companies. For example, this might be in the form of a Salesforce health check, or perhaps a discrete piece of work, perhaps some design work, some configuration, or even some administration. Thirdly, and by no means least important, we provide post-go-live service management, and this ensures that our customers' Salesforce solutions are continuously maintained, improved, and enhanced to grow and support their business. And we think this is particularly important since Salesforce has 3 releases each year, which all bring enhanced capability and functionality. And we find this ongoing relationship with our customers is of critical importance for long-term success. And lastly, we provide products on the App Exchange. For anyone who doesn't know what the App Exchange is, this is a marketplace for cloud computing applications built for the Salesforce.com community. And they're delivered by parties or third-party developers. And these can be purchased, and some are available free of charge on the App Exchange, which can easily be added to people's Salesforce environments. Okay, so on to the next slide, Keir, please. So finally, from my introduction, why BrightGen? So BrightGen, we are Force.com specialists and experts. All our consultants are certified in the platform, and we're only one of 2 consultancies in the UK who have a certified technical architect. We've extensive experience with hundreds of successful implementations of Salesforce under our belt, with, as I've mentioned before, projects ranging in scale from 1 week to 1 year. We strive to be agile in our approach to projects, aligning our flexibility to that of the platform. So Force.com, as you'll hear from Keir shortly, allows for rapid delivery, multiple rollouts, and ease of change. And from this point on, I shall hand over to my colleague Keir Belden, who will talk more about the platform and show you some demos and a case study. Keir, over to you.
Right, thanks very much for that, David. So now we'll turn our attention to the main topic of today's webinar, Force.com. So here we can see the various elements of the Salesforce platform. Today we'll be covering the Force.com element on the left-hand side. No additional servers or software to purchase or manage. Your applications run on the same secure and proven service, and there are no additional fees. So Force.com is part of your Salesforce instance. You just need to make sure that all the users that need access to your Force.com application are licensed. So I've been developing software for over 25 years, and this slide sums up for me the real advantages of Force.com. So earlier in my career, if I wanted to build an application, I'd have to locate and purchase a server. I'd have to get the operating system patched up to date to make sure there were no security vulnerabilities. I'd have to install a database, a web server. Then I could get on with actually building my application. And once that was built, tested and deployed, I'd have to then look after backing up my data, patching all the various components up to date, making sure that the security is up to date. So with Force.com, all this and quite a lot more, as you can see from this slide, is all taken care of by the platform. So that allows me to deliver applications extremely rapidly, as I only have to focus on solving the business problems and not on the kind of, keeping the balls in the air. And one interesting point to note is that once I've developed my application, I can make it available on the Salesforce mobile application purely through configuration. So my kind of applications are instantly mobilized. So according to research by the IDC analysts, you can deliver applications 5 times faster and for half the cost of on-premise software on Force.com. So we haven't analysed this in the same level of detail that IDC have, but it's certainly our experience that we can build applications faster, and because we can build them faster, that generally means we can build them cheaper. So Force.com, it's a rapid development environment because when you're building a Force.com application, you don't write code like you used to in the old days. Instead, you assemble applications from building blocks of existing components. So for example, once you add a field to a custom object using the drag and drop interface, the platform automatically provides database storage. It gives you a set of web pages for maintaining and viewing the data. The field is immediately searchable. It's included in reports. And it's added to the security and access layer to give fine-grained control over which users can view and modify it. It's available via a number of APIs. It's available in the web service API and REST API. And it can also, as I said, be used in the mobile application. And all of this happens as soon as you save the field. There's no additional configuration that you need to do. So moving on to TT Electronics. So this is the customer who we built the sample application that we're going to show you a bit later on. They've been a Salesforce customer for around 4 years, and they're big believers in building new applications using the platform, mainly to maximize return on their license investment. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no additional license cost for the custom applications, and users have access to them through the same familiar UI as the standard Salesforce applications, which can often be quite a benefit in terms of adoption. So TT Electronics, they're a global electronics group, £500 million a year in revenue. They have a worldwide customer base, including customers in the automotive, aerospace and defence industries. They've grown through mergers and acquisitions, which has led to a number of disparate systems and processes. So they kind of tended to act as 30 different companies, and over the years they've been going through a consolidation process to kind of act more as a group and all be pulling in the same direction. And there's a multi-level hierarchy where the group is composed of divisions, which are composed of business units, which are composed of manufacturing sites. That leads to some complexity in the way the data is structured. So now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the particular application that we developed using Force.com for TTE, which was a risk management application. So the existing solution was based on Excel spreadsheets. So the risk teams at the various levels of the hierarchy would produce their spreadsheets on a monthly basis and email those up to the team at the next level, who would manually collate the data into their spreadsheet, and it would make its way up the food chain, finally arriving at the group risk management team. So amalgamating the changes from multiple providers was a very manual and error-prone process, required a lot of administrative effort, and generally speaking, it meant that the information was always out of date by a couple of weeks. And this led to a bit of a lack of confidence in the data, because when the board were examining this data in one of their meetings, if they started to drill down into it, they'd find that actually the situation they were being presented with wasn't the current real situation. There was also a lack of control over what data could be entered into the spreadsheets, which meant that each business unit, division, etc., had their own idea of what information would be useful, which again increased the administrative effort in kind of normalizing that data. And once the master spreadsheet was complete for a period, it was made available to the board via a link on their intranet as an Excel spreadsheet again. So board members that were keen to use their iPads to view the risk data, they either struggled to find the link, struggled to get onto the internet through their iPads, or when they did locate it, they didn't have the correct software installed to allow them to view an Excel spreadsheet on their iPad. So this application was a great fit for the Forcecom platform, and I'm sure this scenario is quite familiar to most, if not all, of those people attending today. So the business needs, the requirements for the new system were automation. So they're very keen to move away from the lengthy, error-prone manual consolidation. They wanted standardization, so they wanted everyone providing the same information in the same format, and they wanted some automated rules to enforce this. They wanted some auditing associated with this, so when they were presented with a spreadsheet, they generally speaking couldn't see the history of what had happened there. So they wanted to be able to track the changes that have been made to a risk, and also the controls that were going to mitigate that risk over the lifetime of the risk. And visibility was very important. They needed to be able to see the changes as soon as they were applied and not have to wait 2 weeks for this consolidation and circulation process to complete. So because of the building block nature of Force.com, we were able to take a phased approach to quickly demonstrate return on investment. So the first phase was 4 weeks. And at the end of this, they had a system that provided risk capture and maintenance. It rolled up information through the hierarchy, and there were a set of custom pages that we've developed to provide a high-level view for the group risk management team and the board. An important point to note is this wasn't 4 weeks of development. This was 4 weeks of an application development project. So that included requirements gathering, it included our QA, the customer's QA, user acceptance testing, training, data migration, all of those things, and from idea to live in 4 weeks. And we couldn't have done this, probably 5 years ago, as the technology didn't really exist. Instead, we'd have been looking at phases taking 3 to 6 months. We wouldn't have been able to react in a timely manner as the requirements changed, which they did, and they always do. This new system has led to a significant reduction in the administration effort of the risk management team. So what they tell us is they're now actually doing their job of managing risk as opposed to administrating and maintaining spreadsheets. And from the board's perspective, faster decisions can be made because they have more accurate and timely information. So now I'm going to pause my screen for a moment, and I'm going to jump out and give you a quick demo of the risk management application. This is my Salesforce Developer Edition that we built the application in. Important point to note, this isn't the TT system, there's no real data in here. This is the Developer Edition that we built the system in. And to get hold of this Developer Edition cost us nothing. We were just able to sign up for that with Salesforce, and it arrived in a couple of minutes. The new system was spun up for us to build on. So the risk management application, look, you access it from exactly the same way that you do any standard application. It's on the drop down on the top right. And it looks much the same as any standard application. So I've got my standard home page, it's got my calendar on there, I've got chatter, as you can see, all the familiar bits and bobs. An important point to note is that a custom app doesn't have to be all custom. You don't have to build it from the ground up. You can include any standard functionality that you require. So in this case, I've got the home tab, I've got chatter, I've got reports, and I've got dashboards, and that's all standard functionality. So I then click into my custom risks tab. So this gives me some high-level detail about the risks that I've recently accessed. The fields that are displayed here are configurable, and I've configured in the ones that I'm most interested in. So I also have list views that are created on the actual risk object. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm only interested in current risks. We have the concept of historic risks as well, and we can provide some analysis about how we're doing against that previous risk. And this is a list view. Again, list views are a standard concept, so you'd have those on accounts, you'd have those on contacts, and you can create those in the same way on your custom objects. You can configure in the fields that you wish to display on these. And much like standard list views, any user can create these to their own requirements, and they can be allowed to share those with other users if you so desire. So if I click into a risk record, so this form has been created entirely through point and click. So I've created the custom object by clicking buttons, I've added fields to it, and then I've organized this page layout through the drag and drop interface. An interesting field is the status image that you can see here. This is derived from the controls that are in place to mitigate the risk. So this is an example of the platform providing some really useful functionality in that I can roll up all the status of the controls. If they're all green, my risk status is green. If any of them are amber, my risk status would be amber. And if any of them were red, my risk status would be red. Again, that's just standard functionality, small amount of configuration. And down at the bottom of the page, again, much like standard objects, I can see information related to this risk. So I can see my risk controls. I can see my child risks as the risk decomposes down the organizational structure. And again, the fields that are displayed here are entirely up to me, and I can also choose the order in which things are displayed. So in terms of my risk controls, I've sorted those by the due date so that I can see the oldest risk first. So clicking through to a control. So these are the individual mitigation actions that are being tracked. Now, what you can't see on the page is that there is an automated process tied to this due date. So, for example, if the due date is 1 day away and the control doesn't have a status detail of complete, then an escalation email gets sent to the risk management team. Again, this was a point-and-click configuration of this. I haven't written a single line of code to get any of that functionality. The one area where we couldn't use the point-and-click approach was the risk register. If I click into that. And the reason for that is that the board wanted a 20,000-foot view of all the risks that were present at the group level, and they wanted some tabular form. They wanted a little bit of branding around it, but they also wanted to see a heat map. They wanted to see a visual representation of the likelihood and severity of those risks, so they could see which ones were the problem children and which ones they ought to be focusing their efforts on. So this is an interactive page as well, so the board can hover over things and find out a bit more detail about it. They can click through and they can view the controls that are associated with this. These pages are styled to work on the desktop as well as the iPad. And I'm in Visual Force and Apex here, and the Visual Force side of things is really just a layer on top of HTML. So that means if there's some JavaScript functionality from an openly available library that I want to include, I do that in exactly the same way that I would with any particular web page. And here I've just picked up a little timeline widget that gives a visual representation of the order in which things can happen and allows me to scroll through that timeline and see exactly what's happening. So this is the only area where we had to go outside of the point-and-click approach. So that's it for me on the demo side of things. If I just flip back to the presentation. So are there any questions?
Thanks, Kier. It's Julian here from Salesforce. We're just going to unmute all the attendees on this morning's webinar. In the meantime, we had some questions come in on the question panel around the profile of BrightGen's customers and projects, and one in particular on have you done any work in the public sector. So could you talk about some other automation projects you've done with clients while we unmute everyone?
Right. I'm trying to think. I don't think we've done anything in the public sector. We've certainly done things around, we've done things in quite a lot of industry verticals. So we've worked with utility companies, manufacturing companies, retail companies. Yeah, if you have a look on our website, you'll see a number of logos of the companies that we've dealt with.
Thanks, Kier. We have a question here, Kier. Can you explain something about the lead and contact management in Salesforce, how can you upload content? So maybe if you just talk a little bit about how the Force.com element relates to the core sales element.
Absolutely. So where Force.com comes into its own with regard to the standard functionality is extending that without having, again, to write reams and reams of code around it. So an example of how we've used Force.com in the past to enhance the lead process is formula fields, for example, on the lead that give an indicator of whether the lead is satisfied with the criteria that you can qualify that lead and try and turn it into an opportunity. Customization of taking custom fields from the lead and moving those across to the account, the opportunity, and the contract that gets created. In terms of, and also in terms of contacts, again, it's very much about extending, being able to add additional information in and being able to synchronize on that information, being able to set up automated processes based on that information so that you know that there's a particular date that's of interest to a contact and something needs to have happened with whoever is charged with working with that contact. If the status of the contact doesn't indicate that they've been dealt with appropriately, then that can be automatically escalated up to a line manager. Okay, do we have any more questions, or shall I wrap up?
We have one final question around the profile of applications that you would that are suitable for the Force.com platform. So if you talk about a little about the best fit apps in the business that you would use, or that you would choose to automate on the Force.com platform.
Right. I mean, the great fits are things like this, where there's a it sits off the data sits off system, and it's not in a systemized held in a systemized way. So it's held in Word documents, it's held in maybe Google Docs, it's held in Excel spreadsheets. There's not an awful lot of structure to it. There's no systemization to it. So that's a great thing, a great sort of application. That's the sweet spot for moving an application onto Force.com. That allows you to add some structure to your data. It allows you to have control over the process of entering that data. It allows you to be provided with a bunch of reports available on that data. Everyone's got a standard interface to be able to enter and maintain their data. There's a single place where everyone knows to go. There's a single version of the truth rather than hundreds of these static spreadsheets scattered around the organization. Which isn't to say that you can't do much more complicated things. So other pieces of work that we've done for TT Electronics, just for example, there's a key performance indicator dashboard which gives them quite a rich user interface to allow them to track how they're doing against the KPIs that are important to the board and the investors, and to drill down onto each of those and to see month-by-month performance over the last several years, again displayed on desktop and iPad. And we've also done quite a complex sales reporting project for them. It tends to fit quite a lot of scenarios quite well. You can do more heavyweight development, more sort of traditional development quite happily, but the real sweet spot is where you've got all these spreadsheets flying around and nobody quite knows where they are and whether the information's accurate. That's moving that onto Force.com. It's simple, it's a fairly repeatable process, and it just delivers so much value in such a short time.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kier. We're all done for questions on this side.
Okay. Right. So just some takeaway. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Here's some ways you can reach out and contact us if the concept of rapidly delivering applications appeals to you. Any of these mechanisms, connect to myself or David via LinkedIn. We'd love the opportunity to talk to you about your IT backlog. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Kier.